Luke, the 23rd chapter. Luke chapter 23. It's good to see Jessica. She's been gone a couple of months. Good to see her back. Good to have you back, Jessica. We're very glad to see you. Randy, doing okay? Jessica's here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she's here. Very good to see her. Andy just told me that Margie is out sick. Edgar just told me that Miss Carol is sick at home. That counts for their absence. The Jones are out of town.
For a couple of weeks.
For a couple of weeks. Okay. Jones are out of town. So that counts for their absence. No, I'm not going to say that Diane's a little touched in the head now, Harold. He did this towards her. And we won't mention that. We don't get into the mental stuff. Just physical. We talked to Bernice, I think it was Friday. I think we talked to her yesterday. But anyway, they're doing very well. Prentice is doing very well. He's out doing things that he thinks he can do, and the doctor told him to go do whatever he thinks he can do. Just don't pick anything up real heavy. Don't strain with that aneurysm that he came home with. So let's pray for Prentice and for Bernice that continues for both of them. It's good to have Brother Briggs. See, I done forgot his first name. Russell Briggs. Yeah. He's been here before. He works down at the paper mill occasionally, so he's back here with us again. We appreciate him coming out this morning. Anything else we need to say? Anyone else?
My dad's sick this morning.
Pardon me?
My dad's sick this morning.
Oh, okay. Dustin is homesick. Your mother's here, did you say?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Let's have a word of prayer. Father, we're so thankful that we're able to be here this morning for this blessing of this first day of the week, that we come together as a people of yours, that we can study your word, we can discuss it among us. Help us, Father, to understand it. Help us to appreciate it to the point that we want to live by it to the very best of our abilities. Pray for those who we mentioned here who are not able to be here this morning, especially thanking you that Prentice is doing well and that he was able to come home, and we pray your continued good blessing upon him and Bernice at this time. And with all those who were mentioned this morning and not being able to make this assembly, bless them, the Father, that they might enjoy better health, better days, if it be your will. Forgive us all of our many failings. In the name of Christ we pray. Amen. Luke chapter 23, we'll begin this morning in verse 21. We spent, 2 weeks ago, we weren't here last Sunday, and I appreciate Andy filling in for me. I know it was a pretty short notice. I don't know if I called you Sunday morning or Saturday night, but at any rate, Andy quickly agreed to fill in for us. Andy was sick Wednesday night, but he still taught the class. Feeling better. You look better. That's a compliment, Andy. You look better. You're doing well. But at any rate, we do appreciate Andy filling in for us last Sunday. 2 weeks ago, we discussed Jesus here. He's back before Pilate. Pilate is making an effort to release him. He's figured out that there's nothing wrong with this man, Jesus. He's not guilty of anything. These people were just envious of him, and he's having a time trying to convince them that he just needs to release him, and let's all go home and have a good day. Verse 20 there, Pilate therefore willing to release Jesus spake again to them. So let's begin in verse 21. We'll read down through verse 26 for our discussion this morning. Luke chapter 23, verse 21, Pilate's trying to release Jesus, verse 21, but they cried, saying, well, crucify him, Pilate. And he said unto them the third time, why, what evil has he done? I found no cause of death in him. I will therefore chastise him and let him go. And they were instant with loud voices, required that he might be crucified. And the voices of them and of the chief priests prevailed. And Pilate gave sentence that it should be as they required, and he released unto them him that for sedition and murder was cast into prison, whom they had desired, but he delivered Jesus to their will. And as they led him away, they laid hold upon one Simon, a Cyrenian, coming out of the country. And on him they laid the cross that he might bear it after Jesus. But going back to verse 21 now, Pilate is making an effort to release this man Jesus. He hasn't found anything wrong with him. Well, we just had turned him loose. We remember from 2 weeks ago, Pilate had suggested to him, you know, this is the time of year I always do y'all a favor. I release a prisoner to you. We got Barabbas, but you know he's a murderer. And we've got this man Jesus who's always standing here in front of us all. I don't see anything wrong with him. Who do y'all want? And he obviously thought, well, they're going to ask for Jesus. They're not going to want a murderer turned loose. But of course, they did the opposite thing of what Pilate thought that they would do. They're crying out, they're hollering out in verse 21, crucify. He needs to be killed. Pilate, crucify him. You know, that's a very ancient and old form of punishment. It's a very difficult punishment to go through. Notice Deuteronomy chapter 21. This was practiced way back in the time of Moses as they wandered in the wilderness. Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 22 and 23. I can get there. I'm on the wrong page. One more page. Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 22. Notice this is the law of Moses here, the old law. If a man hath committed a sin that's worthy of death, he needs to suffer capital punishment. If a man hath committed a sin that's worthy of death, and he be to, can I read that? And he be to be put to death, and you hang him on a tree. This hanging on a tree now is not like we see on Gunsmoke and all these other westerns where somebody's going to swing from a rope now. You know, that's not the hanging on the tree. Well, let's read the next verse and we'll get back to that. Verse 23, his body shall not remain all night upon that tree, but thou shalt in any wise bury him that day. For he that is hanged is accursed of God, that thy land be not defiled, whom the Lord thy God giveth thee for an inheritance. We mentioned that 2 or 3 times in the last 3 or 4 classes. Jesus has got to be crucified, killed, buried before the day's over. The next day is going to be the Sabbath day. It's going to be Saturday for us. Saturday begins at 6 o'clock in the evening for us today. They begin at 6 o'clock this evening. He got to be crucified on the cross. He got to be dead, and he got to be gotten off that cross before sundown. You cannot leave a man hanging on the tree, hanging on a cross after sundown. But notice Acts chapter 5. Acts chapter 5, notice how they describe Jesus' crucifixion there. Acts chapter 5 in verse 30. The God of our fathers raised up Jesus, whom you slew and who you hanged on a tree. This is, of course, what Deuteronomy chapter 21 was talking about. He wasn't hung with a rope. He was hanged. He was crucified on the cross on a tree, a cross that was made from a tree. However, a way that we want to describe that. But this is a horrible form of death. It's a long death, an agonizing death. It takes a while for this person that's been nailed to this tree to die. And Deuteronomy chapter 21 tells us that someone who is hanged on that tree is accursed of God. And this guy Jesus here, he's accursed to these Jewish people who don't like him at all. And they believe since he's claiming to be the Son of God, well, he's accursed of God. He needs to be crucified because he thinks that he is the Son of God. Notice verse 22 now. Anyone have any comment? Notice, they're crying out, hollering, Pilate, crucify him, let's go home. And he said unto them the third time, well, what evil has he done? This is the third time. Verse 16, I will chastise him and release him. Verse 20, Pilate therefore willing to release Jesus, spake again to them. And now verse 22, the third time, well, what evil has the man done? Tell me what has he done wrong? 3 times he's asking. You know, at least Pilate's he's persistent in his effort to release the man. He still don't see anything wrong with Jesus. He didn't believe their accusation. Going back there to verse 3, he perverts the nation. He stirs up the people. They don't believe in paying taxes, and he thinks he's a king just like Caesar is, Pilate. Pilate didn't believe any of those things. Why didn't Pilate? Did Pilate have the authority to just release him?
Yes.
Notice John chapter 19. If he did, what? You know, who's in charge here?
It was something to do with the Romans, sir. It was something to do with the Romans. They didn't want the Romans to come down on them.
No. Pilate had a pretty good job, and he didn't want to lose his job. Huh? I don't blame him. You know, if somebody's got to be killed for me to save my job, well, why not? You know, it's everybody for themselves, huh? John chapter 19, verse 9. Pilate has taken Jesus into his palace again privately. Verse 9, John 19, verse 9. And he went in again to the judgment hall, and Pilate said to Jesus, Whence art thou? Where are you from? And Jesus gave no answer. Verse 10 then said Pilate unto him, Jesus, you're not going to talk to me? Do you know that I have the power to crucify you, and I have the power to release you? He could do that. So why are we dilly-dallying around? He's the authority. He's the judge here. You know, he's the one that can make the decision. He's trying to persuade these people to, let's just turn him loose. Well, why not just make that decision yourself? Notice Mark chapter 15. Mark chapter 15 and verse 12. Pilate answered and said again unto them, What will you then that I should do unto him, unto whom you call the King of the Jews? They're still hollering out, verse 14, verse 11, release unto us Barabbas. Okay, but what do you want me to do with Jesus? He's asking them now, tell me what to do.
He's trying to keep the peace of the Jews.
Okay, and I think so too. And we're going to see that in Matthew 27 here in just a little bit. He recognized this is a mob of people, and there's fixing to be a big stir made. And when this gets back to Rome, that Pilate was there when all this uprising occurred there, it's going to look bad. And so he needs to try to assuage these people to keep some peace here. But he's trying to reason with them now. You know, as we go back to Luke chapter 23, he's trying to reason with them. What evil has he done? Tell me what he's done, and then maybe we can do something about that. You know, I'll chastise him and let him go. That's the same thing he told him back in verse 16. I will therefore chastise him and release him. You know, Jesus here has been justified by his judge. The judge, the authority, Pilate here has found him not guilty. What evil has he done? You folks say he's a malefactor. Well, tell me what evil he's done, and we'll go with that. But so far, you ain't told me anything here. Notice verse 23. Verse 20. And they were instant with loud voices, requiring that he might be crucified. Instantly with a loud voice. Verse 18, they cried out at once. They didn't have to think about this. You know, well, you know, we can have the murderer or we can have this man Jesus. Well, they didn't think about that. The murderer. You know, they cried out with a loud voice. Notice that they required. They didn't ask. They were demanding that he be crucified. The conclusion of the verse there is that their voices prevailed over what Pilate was trying to tell them. Great and persistent in their effort. They were very diligent in their efforts to see that this man is crucified. You know, their bitter hatred that was fueled by their envy towards this man Jesus. They were blind with envy and hate. And all they wanted was to make sure that while we got him here, he's going to be crucified. Apparently, Pilate was too weak to use his own good judgment, to use his authority to simply release the man, Pat.
In my mind, he knew that wouldn't work.
Okay.
That's why he made that decision.
Yeah, he knew it wasn't going to work because they would have probably mobbed him on, on the way out of the Pilate judgment hall, Andy.
They were trying to get the Roman government to sanctify the murder. I like the way Acts says when you murdered him, you hung him on the tree.
Yeah.
That was evil intent.
Yeah.
They were just trying to appease the act of murder. They were going to kill him anyway.
Yeah, I think so. And I think Pilate knew that. But again, Pilate wanted to save face, make himself look good in front of all the people. Of course, this is going to blow up in everybody's face.
Did the sanctity of life really matter to Pilate?
You want that?
Did the sanctity of life really matter to Pilate?
No.
He didn't care.
No, he didn't care.
He didn't care whether it was Barabbas or Jesus.
No.
Sinless versus guilty.
No. No, but we're going to see here in a little bit that Pilate was under a lot of pressure, even from his own wife, remember?
Yeah.
His own wife sent him a message saying, get away from that. Don't do anything with him because he's innocent. I've had some dreams about him. So you need to do the right thing and get rid of that situation. He's under a lot of pressure here. But notice verse 24, as we go back to Luke chapter 23, Pilate gave sentence that it should be as they required. He gave in. But he don't think this is the right thing. He's been trying to say, well, let's turn him loose. Let's all go home and have lunch. We'll have a good day. We've tried, and he's okay. But he's going to have to justify himself of this. Go with me to Matthew chapter 27. I haven't heard the expression in a long time. When you're involved in a situation and you think maybe it's the wrong thing to do, and I've washed my hands of that whole affair. I washed my hands of it. I haven't heard that in a while, but we used to use it commonly. Usually that means, I'm not guilty of that, what they are doing, what they were trying to do, and they wanted me to help. Well, I know I washed my hands of it. Usually that's being said, well, I was part of it, but I ain't now. I was for it, but I ain't no more.
Me and you cannot stop in this situation.
Do what now?
Me and you, whoever else is here, we cannot make a firm decision. We better watch our mouth, because when we say
Yeah.
we're not, we're going to wash our hands.
Yeah.
You better mean it, or just.
It's going to come back and haunt you.
It will get you.
It will, and we're going to see something here in just a minute that's going to come back and bite them real hard. Matthew chapter 27 and verse 24, when Pilate saw that he could prevail nothing, trying to get them, let's do the right thing. He's not getting anywhere with it. He couldn't prevail anything, but that rather a tumult was made. And there again, this is where these people are going to really get excited, and they may be a revolt here. They may just grab this guy Jesus and beat him to death right there in front of Pilate, and have blood all over the palace here. And this gets back to Caesar. Pilate, what are you doing down there? You can't keep the peace. He didn't want that. He wants to keep his job. But rather a tumult's going to be made. Pilate took water, washed his hand before the multitude, saying, look, I'm innocent of the blood of this just person. Y'all see to it. If that's what you want to do, y'all crucify him. But I'm going to show you that I'm innocent of this blood of an innocent person. He's going to wash his hands. He's going to show his innocence in this matter. Is he really innocent? Well, he had the power to release him. He could have turned him loose. He just didn't have the intestinal fortitude to do that. In his mind, he tried to do all that he could do, but he still didn't do what he could do. He could have released him. But I'm going to wash my hands of it. This is symbolic of I'm not guilty of this. Go with me again.
Even his wife, Paul's wife, didn't want to be crucified. She said, have no evil.
Right.
Do no evil against this man.
Yeah.
I think she said he's a just man.
He's a just man. And I don't guess she was even there. She'd had a dream about this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go with me back to Deuteronomy chapter 21. This washing of hands. This wasn't something that Pilate invented. This was something that was used under the Old Testament law. Perhaps maybe Pilate thought, I'm going to wash my hands in front of all these people. It's going to remind them of their law, of what they were supposed to do when they're innocent of something. Of course, that's not going to work either. Deuteronomy chapter 21, beginning in verse 1, let's read the first 3 verses. Here's an example of something that might happen. If one be found slain in the land, which the Lord your God hath given you to possess, lying in the field, and it be not known who killed him, then the elders and your judges shall come forth, and they shall measure unto the cities which are round about him that is slain. And it shall be that the city which is next unto the slain man, even the elders of that city shall take a heifer, which hath not been wrought with, and which hath not drawn in the yoke. If we showed up this morning, out here, and out in the parking lot there's a body of a dead man laying there. He's been shot 3 times in the back, so he didn't commit suicide. He's laying there. We don't know who he is, Harold. We don't know who killed him. The old law says when that happens, figure out which town is the closest to it. And that's the jurisdiction that this dead man belongs to. Well, that's going to be Leesville out here. So we're going to contact the authorities of Leesville. They're going to come out here and, well, yeah, he's dead. We don't know who he is either. We don't know who killed him. Notice what they're going to do. Verse 6, Deuteronomy 21 and verse 6. All the elders of that city, all the authorities of the town of Leesville that are next to the slain man, the closest to the slain man, they're going to wash their hands over that heifer that they slaughtered, that was beheaded in the valley. Verse 7, and they're going to answer and say, our hands have not shed this blood, neither have our eyes seen who killed this man. We don't know what happened to him either. But be merciful, O Lord, unto your people Israel, whom you have redeemed, and lay not innocent blood upon thy people of Israel's charge, and the blood shall be forgiven them, and thou shalt put away the guilt of innocent blood from among you, when thou shalt do that which is right in the sight of the Lord. These people that came out from Leesville, they didn't know who killed him either. But they're going to say and testify and say before everybody, look, we're going to wash our hands here to show you that we don't know. We don't know either. We knew we would arrest and prosecute whoever it is, but we didn't do it. So they washed their hands to show that they were innocent. And Pilate apparently knew that law. Maybe they had practiced it a lot during that time, and thought maybe this would remind them that, that's what you're supposed to do when you're innocent of something. And so he's going to wash his hands, supposedly clearing himself of Jesus' crucifixion, although he had the power to sort of stop it all and not allowed that to happen. I'm innocent of this man's blood. You people do it. You people crucify him. You want to crucify him, but we'll go ahead. Remember, Pilate passed the buck to King Herod. They drug Jesus to Pilate. When he heard that he was a Galilean, he thought, well, he belongs to King Herod. He's from Galilee. Herod's over Galilee. Let's send him to Herod. He's not my responsibility. Well, he got him back. And now he decided, well, I don't want to crucify him, but if y'all want to, y'all go ahead. But let's pass the buck to these people. That's a typical politician. Something's going right, well, get out of the way. You got to get right in the middle of the picture. It went wrong. Well, I don't know what happened there. I tried to tell them, Micah, but they wouldn't listen to me. But, that's human nature. Notice Matthew chapter 27, if you're still there. I still am for some reason. Remember Judas? Judas took the money back. He betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. And notice verse 3, and then Judas, which had betrayed Jesus, when he saw that Jesus was condemned, he repented. He changed his mind. I shouldn't have done that. Wish I hadn't have done that. And he brought again the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and the elders, saying, look, I've sinned, that I betrayed innocent blood. And they told Judas, well, what's that to us? You see to that. That's your problem, Judas. At one time, they were glad to see Judas, pleased that they had Judas there going to help them. But when everything's going south now, going sour, and Judas knows better, and then what they're saying, well, Judas, that's your problem. You go take care of that. If you got a problem with that, well, you go take care of that. But notice, go with me back to Matthew chapter 27. Notice the last part of verse 24 there. He told them, y'all want to crucify him. Well, you see to it. Notice verse 25 now. Then answered all the people and said to Pilate, Pilate, his blood can be on us. Pilate, even his blood can be on our children. If we want to go a little further with that, they can pass it on down to our grandchildren. Pilate, we are okay with it. We can take the blame. We'll put the blame on our kids and our grandkids. It ain't no problem.
Did those actions absolve Pilate of his guilt?
Say that again now?
Did those actions absolve Pilate of his guilt?
Oh, no, not at all. But did these mean, how long did that pledge last, that brag last? Not long. Notice Acts chapter 5. Acts chapter 5, now this is the chief priest and the Sanhedrin council, the Jewish council, telling Pilate, yeah, let us have him. We'll crucify him. His blood can be all over our hands. His blood can be all over our children's hands. It means nothing to us because he needs to be crucified. We're going to do the right thing. Acts chapter 5 and verse 18 says that all the apostles have been put in prison. And finally, all these apostles are brought before the same chief priest and before this same council now that just told Pilate not too long before this, we'll kill him. And his blood can be on our hands. It's okay with us. Acts chapter 5, verse 27. Notice this. And when they had brought them, the apostles, from the prison, they set them before the council, and the high priest is going to ask them something. Same council, same high priest. Notice what they're going to ask, verse 28. Look, apostle, did we not straightly command you that you should not teach in his name? And look, you fill Jerusalem with your doctrine. And is it your intention to bring this man's blood upon us? Well, yeah, that's what you said. That's what you told Pilate. His blood can be on our hands. You apostles are spreading this all around Jerusalem now, and it looks like you're trying to blame us with his blood. Well, you said that you could bear it. Don't worry about it, Pilate. His blood can be on our hands. It can be on our children's hands. You know, that didn't last long. Things are going sour. Things are going south again. And again, since it's gone wrong, well, I don't know anything about it, Edgar. I was there, but I misunderstood. You know, I voted the wrong way. I thought the way they worded it, I voted the wrong way. Well, no, I'm to blame. Just like these people blame. You're trying to blame us for this man's death? At one time they were for it, but now apparently we're against it. You know, and that's just human. Let's go back to Luke chapter. Anyone have any comment? Back to Luke chapter 23. Verse Pilate gave sentence. They wanted him crucified. Pilate sentenced him to be crucified as they required. Verse 24. As they required, as they demanded, as they wanted it to be, Pilate said, okay, you take him and you crucify him. Well, that's well and good with us. We can handle that. And even our children can be blamed with it. We're so right in what we're going to do. Notice now verse 25. Pilate released unto them him that for the sedition and murder was cast into prison. Where'd he go? Cast into prison, whom they had desired, but he delivered Jesus to their will. Pilate's going to go ahead and release Barabbas. This is someone who was guilty of murder, of sedition and murder, rebellion and insurrection against Caesar. Barabbas was guilty of violating the Jewish law of thou shalt not kill. Barabbas was guilty of violating the Roman law of rising up against Caesar, trying to overthrow Caesar and run all these Romans out of Judea there. You know, a Jew or a Roman under a normal circumstance would not have wanted a murderer to be released. They wouldn't have wanted that. But you know, in this particular case, with Jesus here, whom they envied and hated so much, they will take a murderer. Fine with us, give us a murderer. Thou shalt not kill. But give us the murder. Luke 23 and verse 18, away with this man. Mark chapter 15 and verse 40, not this guy, but give us Barabbas, Pilate. Wonder who Barabbas go home with that night? Anybody want to take a murderer home with you tonight and let him spend the night? Well, maybe he went to a halfway house. We can just rehabilitate it. Then he'll be okay. But Pilate delivered Jesus to their will. Notice John chapter 19. I said a while ago, Pilate was under a lot of pressure from his wife. She sent him this message. Pilate has tried to persuade these people to let's let him go. John chapter 19, if I can find that, verse 12. From thenceforth Pilate sought to release Jesus, but notice that the Jews cried out, saying, Pilate, if you let this guy go, you're not Caesar's friend. You're not Caesar's friend. Now you're supposed to be Caesar's friend, his representative. We like Caesar. Did they really like Caesar?
No.
They wish Caesar was gone too. Notice verse 15. But they cried out, away with him, away with him. Crucify him. Pilate saith unto them, shall I crucify your king? The chief priests answered Pilate, we don't have any king but Caesar. We just love Caesar. And said, Pilate, if you let this guy go, you're not Caesar's friend. And we're going to tell Caesar that you're not his friend. He was under a lot of pressure. You know, they're working on his mind. You know, he didn't want to lose his job if this was reported back to Caesar. He didn't want to get in trouble. And so Pilate releases Barabbas, who they desired. And they gave Jesus over to their will. Notice Acts chapter 3. This saga, this up and down, this back and forth is going to continue for quite a while. Pointing fingers and no, it wasn't my fault, even though I wanted it at one time, now I want it now. And it wasn't me. What?
Where is this?
Pardon me?
Where is your verse?
Acts chapter 3, verse 11. We have here, I'm in Luke, where did I go? Acts chapter 3, we have here Peter and John, that they've healed a lame man, and all the people there, they think that Peter and John are really something. Beginning in verse 11, and as the lame man which was healed held Peter and John, all the people ran together unto them in the porch that is called Solomon's, greatly wondering. And when Peter saw it, he answered to these people, you men of Israel, why you marvel at this? Or why are you looking so earnestly at us, Peter and John, as though we by our own power or our own holiness have made this man to walk? You think that we did this? We didn't do this on our own. Notice verse 13. Folks of Israel, you ever know about the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, the God of our fathers, who glorified his son Jesus? That's our God. And he glorified his son Jesus, whom you delivered up, and you denied him in the presence of Pilate when Pilate was determined to let him go. This lame man has been healed by the power of Jesus, the Son of God, the one that y'all crucified, the one that you told Pilate, we don't want him, give us Barabbas. Notice the next verse, verse 14, but you denied the Holy One, and you denied the just one, the innocent one, and you wanted a murderer to be granted unto you. Peter put it to him pretty straight, huh? Remember, this is what y'all wanted. This is how this lame man has been healed. This is how this lame man can walk again by the power of this man Jesus, who you crucified. Notice Acts chapter 4, verses 1 and 2. And as the apostles spake unto the people, the priests and the captain of the temple, and the Sadducees came upon them, being grieved that they taught the people and preached through the Jesus the resurrection of the dead. They're still teaching about this man Jesus, and they're healing people in his name. And then when we get into Acts chapter 5, we found him thrown in prison and warned them not to teach in his name. And you folks intended to bring his blood upon us. You need to quit talking about us like that. We killed him. We didn't kill him. Yeah, you did. Same chief priest, same council that demanded that he be put to death. Anyone have any comment as I'm looking for where I'm at? Go with it, Matthew chapter 27.
You know, when Pilate was talking to Jesus, he says, I have the authority to let you go. And Christ said, only your authority comes from above, or your power comes.
Yes.
You know, Paul brings that out sort of, I can't remember, it's Corinthians something. He said, blessed is the man who has authority over this is paraphrasing, over the people, over the land, but don't bear the sword in vain.
Okay, that's a good passage, yeah. Pilate could bear the sword. Pilate had the authority to just release or do whatever he wanted to. He could even crucify him, but he didn't do the right thing. He did the human thing, which is probably what I would have done too, Edgar. You know, I got a self-preservation first of all. Save yourself, and then if anybody else is saved, well, that's good for them. Matthew chapter 27. Where am I? Verse 26 looks like. Then released he Barabbas unto them when he had scourged Jesus and delivered him to be crucified. Okay, y'all can have him, but first, he's going to scourge Jesus. What does that mean? Scourged him. Beat him. Let's give him a good whipping before he goes. Flogging with a lashing with a whip. It was the Jews always believed in 40 stripes save one. They would give 39 stripes. The Romans didn't care. They'd go the full 40. They went 41. That's okay too. It doesn't matter. The 2 Corinthians chapter 11 and verse 24 says the Jews was 40 stripes save one. Well, let's whip him. Let's give him a good scourging. Now he's already condemned to die. Notice that you're still in Matthew chapter 27. Notice verse 28. Verse 26, then released he Barabbas unto them, and when he had scourged Jesus, he delivered them to be crucified. Verse 27, notice that then the soldiers of the governor, Pilate's soldiers, took Jesus into the common hall, and notice this, and they gathered unto him the whole band of soldiers. Y'all come here. We've got him now. Pilate's left. He's gone back to eat dinner. We're through with him. Pilate's through with him. They've drug him out in the outside hallway, and they holler for all the other soldiers to come here. Notice what they want. Verse 28, that they stripped Jesus and put on a scarlet robe. Can't we have some fun? We've heard this guy thinks he's a king. We know he ain't no king. Look at him, he ain't no king. He might be a little bit off mentally, but he ain't no king. We can look at him and see that. He's fixing to be crucified, but let's have a little fun first. Verse 28, they stripped him and put on a scarlet robe. Verse 29, and when they had platted the crown of thorns, they put it on his head and a reed in his right hand. They bowed the knee before him and mocked him, saying, Hail, King of the Jews. He thinks he's a king. Strip off his clothes. There's an old robe over there. Bring it over here. We're going to plat him a crown. If he's a king, he needs a crown. John chapter 19 and verse 2 says this was a crown of thorns. Somebody had a sawbriar in here, and they brought it in there, and they wound the thing together, and they put that on his head. Probably had to beat it down on his head a little bit to keep it there on his head. They put a reed in his hand, a stick. A king has this scepter, I think that's what they call it, this thing. It's got all the jewels on it, the gold crown or something up here. Well, that's this king's scepter. He's got on a borrowed robe. He's got on a crown of thorns. He's got this stick, maybe a switch cane. They give him a piece of switch cane in his right hand. That's his scepter. Verse 29, they bowed their knees to Jesus, and they said, Hail, King of the Jews. Not only are they mocking Jesus, they're mocking the Jewish nation too. There's the King of the Jews. There's the king. There's their king. They're mocking Jesus, but they're mocking the Jewish people also. Notice, but go back to John chapter 19. They're going through all of this now. Apparently Pilate, maybe he's still hung around in there. He knows what's going on out in the hallway. I'm in Acts. John chapter 19, beginning there in verse 1, Pilate therefore took Jesus and scourged him. The soldiers platted a crown of thorns, put it on his head, and put on him a purple robe, and said, Hail, King of the Jews, and they smote him with their hands. Notice now, let's see, where am I going with this? Verse 4, Pilate therefore went forth again and said unto the people out there, Behold, I'm going to bring him forth to you that you may know that I found no fault in him. Now they've got him dressed up like a king now. Then came Jesus forth, wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe, and Pilate said unto him, But behold the man. Did he have to drag him out there in front of all them people dressed like that? No. What else can they do to him? What else should they do to him? Matthew 27 and verse 30 said that they got him dressed up like the king. Hail, King of the Jews, and they began to spit on him. They beat him over the head with the rod. He still got this crown of thorns on. The high priest folks back in Matthew chapter 26 and verse 67, They spit on him there. We've got him dressed up like a king now. Let's spit on him. This is the king of the Jews. Beat him on top of the head with the reed. Don't you think that if he beat on the top of your head with a stick with a crown of thorns, that hurt? Edgar, have you ever had a thorn stick you right there? That hurts. Especially if it's an old dry thorn. I don't know why. Maybe the bones right there, and it hurts. It hurts later on too. But they're beating him over the head with this stick, with this crown of thorns on. Matthew 27, verse 31 says, finally they took the robes off and put his clothes back on him. Did they leave the crown of thorns on him? All the pictures we've seen of Jesus on the cross has the crown of thorns on it. All the pictures. In my opinion, yeah, they left the crown of thorns on him. But of course, we don't know if they did. They took the robe off, put his clothes back on him, and led him away to be crucified. Notice verse 20. Anyone have any comment? And they led him away. They laid hold upon one Simon, a Cyrenian. I can find my place. Simon of Cyrene. Yes, sir.
Didn't they beat him with a cat of nine tails somewhere else?
Yes, that was Pilate scourging him, whipping him with that whip. Yeah. And I'm told that whip had pieces of metal and stone and glass or whatever it is, so when they hit you on the back with it, it just chunks of flesh out. That wasn't very fun either. And again, why put him through all this? He's fixing to be crucified. I guess we need to get all the fun out of this that we can possibly get. You know, a mob of people is worse than a mob of dogs or wolves sometimes. They become very savage. And we're going to do all that we can to humiliate this person. But notice this, verse 26, Jesus is on his way now outside of Jerusalem. Why is he going outside?
They can't crucify him inside the city walls.
Okay. Nobody that was condemned to death, especially if we were to go back to the law of Moses and Moses and these people for 40 years, if somebody's going to be stoned to death, they went outside the camp. They didn't live in towns and cities. They always camped in their tents and whatever. They have stayed there several months. But if we're going to stone somebody to death, we're going to carry him outside the camp. All these other folks now were in Jerusalem. They're not going to be crucified inside the city limits of Jerusalem. They're going to go outside the gate. Hebrews chapter 13 and verse 12 tells us that Jesus suffered outside the gate, the city gates of Jerusalem. It was against the law to crucify or put anyone to death inside the city limits of any town. But notice here, we've got this man Simon of Cyrene. He just happens by. Notice Mark chapter 15. Don't know a whole lot about Simon of Cyrene. Mark chapter 15, notice what Mark tells us about him. We know more from Mark than we do anybody. Mark chapter 15 and verse 21, and they compelled one Simon, a Cyrenian, who passed by, coming out of the country. He's the father of Alexander and Rufus, to bear the cross. Now again, Simon, he's just passing by. And he's compelled, he's made, he's forced, he's ordered to carry the cross. Jesus apparently was not in any physical shape to carry the cross. He's been up all night. He's been through several whippings. He's been through several scourgings and made fun of and dressed and undressed and all this type of thing. And Simon of Cyrene, he's passing by, so let's grab him and make him carry the cross. Anybody have any comment? We're past time.
Like Dad just talking about, I'm just guessing he was there from another country
Yes.
and observed the Passover or the Feast of Unleavened Bread at that time. That was,
Yes.
it might be a possibility he was there on that reason.
Yes, I think he was. Is there any tie to, and we'll discuss this list next week, Rufus and Alexander? Paul mentions Rufus. Luke mentions Alexander later on in the New Testament. Is it the same folks? I don't know. But we'll talk about that a little bit next week, and we'll find out. Possibly it could be, as we examine what little we know about this Alexander and Rufus and this Cyrenian. So there was a definite tie between the people of Cyrene. We'll find out where that is next week. and a synagogue in Jerusalem. They have their own synagogue there. Because that's the language they spoke. You know, Pat and I have been in different parts of the country from time to time, and we'll come across a church that this is a Spanish-speaking church, which should be attended as a Spanish-speaking church. No, because we don't understand what they're saying. The Cyrenians had their own synagogue because that's the language they spoke. The Cyrenians would go to the Cyrenian synagogue and they have their worship service. But at any rate, verse 26, we'll begin there next week. Think about that for next week, who this Rufus and
You say
Dedekah.
verse 26.
26, yes, sir.